What is up there, folks? Hope you're all doing well. As per usual, welcome back to more Esports Talk. Another interview amidst ongoing allegations and accusations being tossed Cloud9's way. In case you guys have somehow missed, the past couple of days have been pretty much free fire on the organization ever since the dropping of which many people saw as wrongful of two Fortnite members and streamers, that being Vivid and Chap. One of the many out there now tossing out their own stories is someone I'm talking to now, that being Chris. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you, Jake?
Fantastic. And I'm going to actually read off your tweets on the situation because it was shortly following the announcement of the release of Vivid and Chap. And you were actually one of many who were very outspoken about your own personal situation and circumstance with Cloud9. And so the actual tweet on screen for you guys saying, remember that time Cloud9 signed two Fortnite teams, but they didn't tell either one about the other one until after they signed for 3 years. I remember. And so that is, of course, why I'm talking to you today, because, again, you're one of many who has certainly had their own instance dealing with Cloud9.
Right.
And so I was kind of just curious about the backstory. I think a lot of people who saw your tweet are wondering as well. And so I kind of want you to take me through the back steps of your involvement with Cloud9 and that situation, because it certainly sounds like a very deep and complex one to go through.
Yeah, for sure. I'll try to make it as easy for anybody to follow. So, back in, I think it was like 2018, May of 2018, we ended up signing with Cloud9, me and my 3 teammates, right? So, originally got signed as a squad. And the way it happened was we actually had an org that we were talking to, like, very deeply, like, getting the contract all settled out. And their first contract, we had them send back. Like, we had them kind of work on the verbiage of the contract. So as we were waiting for the contract to come back to us, they ended up contacting us after we've been in talks with Cloud9 at that time for, a while, kind of just like back and forth, kind of like phone tag almost, just like, nothing too crazy. But one day they just ended up like talking to us back really quick one night randomly as we're waiting for the contract, like come to our inboxes like the next morning, basically from a different organization. And so the manager reached out and he's, oh yeah, we'd like talk to you guys, blah, blah. And then I ended up telling him, hey, we do have an offer coming in like tomorrow. Is there any way that like could expedite the process and like get a meeting in like ASAP? And so basically it happened like overnight. They just kind of contacted us. They were like, yeah, we can get contracts like in your inbox, basically like the next day we can send them over. So it all happened like super fast. So we let the other organization know like, hey, we got this offer from, a tier 1, like high-end tier 1 org, like we're gonna have to go with them. We apologize, but just timing of everything, we have to take this in stride, and like you can't turn down an offer like that for really. So when we got the contracts, I had people look through them. Of course, I looked through them. I had lawyers look through them, etc. There was nothing in the contract that stated anything or led us to believe that for any reason there would be another team. I still have the contract. And in the contract, it says, number of players in the starting roster for, in any interview with me, myself, and my team, they never, or I should say the only manager we spoke to, he never mentioned that there was any sort of other team or anything like that. And so I don't know if you saw my tweet that I followed up about the specifics of the contract. I know I told you about it, but just so everybody knows, the contract was like $750 a month for 3 years at 25%, which 25% being like earnings going to the org. And the reason we signed that was because, when you're being sold and told in the interview that like you're going to be, Cloud9's like main Fortnite team, they're going to promote, the hell out of you. They're going to pump your socials, your Twitch, your YouTube, your whatever. You're thinking like, okay, like $750, like that's not a ton. But if I recall correctly, back then, what the information that I knew is even like the CSGO team, when Counter-Strike first started out, I believe they all received $750 contracts. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive. And as the scene expanded, like Counter-Strike expanded, they raised the contracts up and they scaled the contract with the scene. So that's what they told us also. They're like, as the scene grows, your pay will increase and we're going to have you guys long term. And as, the scene develops, we're going to make the contract better and blah, blah, blah. So, as we're signing this contract, we're like, we're signed for 3 years. They're telling us that they're going to scale the contracts. Everything sounds good. Like we're going to be the main team. Like awesome. You know what I mean? So we end up signing. And from there, it was kind of just like all, I wouldn't say like all downhill, but like it just all became very like shady and kind of schemy. And like I said, we all joined the Slack I don't know if anybody knows what Slack is, but it's like business Discord basically. And since we joined it, you can see everybody who's obviously in the Slack, like all the members, all the people that have joined. And when we joined, we ended up seeing 3 members of another team that we're constantly competing against, like in scrims. We're playing scrims every night. We see these people that we know are competing, and like we knew they were talking to them just through like the grapevine of players, like, oh, these players are talking to this team, blah blah blah. So we see them in there, we think like, oh, like maybe they kind of hopped on us like really quick because like maybe things fell through with that other team because teams are talking to tons of teams or tons of organizations like we were. Like we told an org, hey, this isn't working out, we got a better offer. So we thought like maybe that's what happened to them. And we're not gonna like, we're just like these nobodies basically at this point. We're not gonna like speak up to Cloud9 or a manager and be like, oh, hey, what are these people doing here? We're just like looking at it from the outside in, just be like, okay, like, we'll just give them like the benefit of the doubt because like, why would there be 2 teams? You know what I mean? And as the weeks kind of like progressed up until we got announced, I think it was like a probably 3 or 4 week waiting period up until from when we signed to when we got announced. So in that whole period, we're sitting there every day like, okay, they're still in this Discord / Slack call or whatever it is. They're still in this, this app. And I'm like getting just a weird vibe overall. I'm like, there's no way that like, something weird's not going on. So as the days got closer to our video, like our promotional video to announce us, I was like, hey, by the way, would this happen to be like some sort of like dual team announcement? And like, oh yeah, we're actually announcing that we have 2 teams and blah blah blah. And we're like, okay, like that was never told to us, not even after we signed, like nothing was really
And
ever
for you, that main problem eventually ends up being, so you as a quad, you say, you and 3 other guys.
Right, yeah, we were a squad.
So you're led on to believe that, going to be heavily promoted. Cloud9, obviously a gigantic name to be attached to you, much like, FaZe Clan can offer some very low contracts, if anything, because the name has some added value to it. So you take those contracts, then throughout the process, you find out that it's not just your team, but a second team is also being signed. And are you guys competing technically with that other team for limited future spots, or how does that break down?
Right. So yeah, that was the next thing that happened. So after we found out where there were 2 teams, you're like, okay, like whatever. But as the days kind of went on, we found out that okay, so the other team was only 3 people, we were 4 people, and the premise was that like Cloud9 wanted to do something where basically it was like all 7 of us trying out to see the best fit of the 7 to like play with Hysteria and form a squad like with him or some weird dynamic like that, where it's basically like they're trying out everybody to see who would play best with him. And I'm like, okay, but like this is like never even discussed like at all. Like none of this was ever talked about in any sort of talk, like nothing like that. You know what I mean? So I'm just like at this point, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? Like we have no idea. The other team, like we didn't get to talk to them a lot because like I said, like we didn't want to like ask them anything and like breach any we were so scared at that time because we were just like I said, we were just like kind of nobodies at that time. So like you don't want to overstep like any boundaries, or like you don't want to ask the wrong question to the wrong person, or like you know what I mean, you don't want to step on any toes. And like it became really hard to like deal with every day because like we were sort of what I call like the remote team. Like it was just us 4 like playing from our homes. The other team, they got a team house, and like they lived all together in a team house. I think it was in LA. It was like the old CSGO team house that they still had left over, and they were living in that. So it was like, okay, so like these 3 dudes get signed alongside of us. They get to live in a team house. Like, are they also like getting paid more than us? And like if we're competing for spots, like doesn't that kind of create bias towards like the 3 people that a manager is like constantly with? They're like, they're in the house, the managers or like whoever is constantly, around them or with them. Like, wouldn't that just create like some sort of like bias towards them? You know what I mean? So like every day we're just like, what is like, we have no idea what's going on. And anytime we asked about like promotion or like transparency, and promotion as in like, promoting our like socials and like doing whatever with us, it was always like a later, or like oh yeah, that's like gonna happen eventually and blah blah. And like in our heads we're like, okay, cool, like we're signed for 3 years, like we don't really have to worry about it too much, you know what I mean? It'll all come naturally, whether it be like through Twitch or their promotion or whatever. And so as the days went on, they started to even do promotion with the other team. Like they did like a video where I think they all went to like I don't know what beach it was. It was like the Santa Monica Boulevard, something like that. Near the team house, they did like an interview with all three of the players and stuff like that. And we're sitting back, okay, like we're not getting any of this. They're sitting like in a team house in LA. Like we're just like at this point, we're like we have no, like we don't even know what we're doing on this org. You know what I mean? Like we're just sitting here, like why are we even here? Like what's the point really? Like we don't really.
And so eventually down the line, what exactly happened? Did you guys part ways on clearly probably not good terms, but eventually what happens?
So we signed May 25th, I believe, and then we ended up getting announced like in the middle of June, and we got dropped. I think my free agent post was near the end of November, so let's call it from middle of June to middle of November, so 4 or 5 months after being announced.
And was there a reason given to you as to why?
No, there's zero reason. Like it was really just like
How did
we
that?
want to go a different direction of Fortnite. We're gonna part ways with Fortnite. Blah blah blah.
And did they?
Yeah, like they did, but like they released one of our teammates without telling us, and then he had to tell us he got released, and he didn't even know why at the time, and it was only him. So like they released him one by one, then they released another person one by one, and there were two of us from the original signing left, wondering like, okay, like what's going on? Like they're releasing us all one by one. There's no real events happening right now, so like are we safe from being dropped? Are we not safe from being dropped? Like, why did they get dropped, but we didn't? Like, what's going on? Like, we're just like super confused all around. And like, even something that happened like after PAX, like something that I bring up only because it's not specifically player related. Like, we had a manager that came with us to PAX, right? And they weren't supposed to go. It was supposed to be a different manager that was supposed to come with us, but one of the managers couldn't go because they were with another team on another trip at another event sort of thing. So this manager filled in. And at this event, we had to like wait out in the rain for hours, like 3 to 4 hours, I think it was, to like even like play. You'd like stand in line. It was freezing cold. And like, I can't say enough about this manager specifically that they went out of their way to like make sure like we were on time, had our badges, everything was in order. We had food, drinks. Like they did like the most I could say I've had a manager do for me, or I've seen managers do for a lot of people. And there were a lot of managers there at PAX West that I saw do relatively like nothing for their players. And by I mean nothing, I mean like they were just there with the team. Like they didn't really do anything. And as soon as PAX West ended, this manager got released from C9. And nobody knows why. Even to this day, I don't think that person knows why. And, we talked about it even after they got released. Like, do you know why? And they're like, no, I have no idea. They gave me no reason. They just said, like, okay, like, your time is up, blah, blah, blah. So even to this day, I believe they don't know. And obviously, I still don't know. But it was just like, it wasn't even just like a player thing at the time. It was like even managers, they were doing this too. And I only bring that up because I don't want people to think it's only towards the players. It just seems to be like this all-around terrible handling of whatever they're trying to accomplish.
It honestly, if I can gather one of two things, it seems possibly, because we've obviously seen a lot more accusations towards the short-term releases of a lot of players, particularly when it comes to Fortnite, right? And a lot of esports orgs did this with World Cup players, but Cloud9 was one of them who is now facing a handful of stories like your own. And it almost kind of spreads like I imagine, an insecurity when it comes time for newer signees to Cloud9 to know. And I think the one main takeaway I can take from this is a great point for up-and-coming players who do eventually sign contracts to know that seemingly nothing is really guaranteed. And so you're only as good as your last performance, and certainly Cloud9, from your story and others, really uphold to that kind of thing. But it does seem, and from your own experience outside looking in, that this pertained heavily to Fortnite, and that maybe it was because it's a newer scene. You try and spread your net as wide as possible, sign as many people as possible, and unfortunately a lot of those choices made by, albeit staff, have kind of resulted in these kind of responses now being made publicly. Would I be unfair to say that this seems to be a heavily Fortnite-based thing? Because obviously Cloud9, one of the biggest organizations in the entire world, is doing right things elsewhere. When it comes to Fortnite, it seems that they've done quite a bit wrong. Would I be fair in saying that?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say just Fortnite. I would say anything that's not League of Legends or CSGO, because I relatively don't think they care about anybody who doesn't play those games. Because like there was even somebody who posted he's a Clash Royale player. I believe I have the tweet somewhere. I'd have to go look at it. I retweeted it, but he said that basically him and his whole team were on a flight, literally boarding a flight to go to an event, and they were dropped like on the spot without any notice from C9. So it's like, okay, like this isn't just a Fortnite thing. It's not just a Fortnite thing. Like I said, it's literally a not League of Legends, not CS:GO thing. It's like a top-down, top-to-bottom organizational problem to me from looking on the outside in, it seems, because they've done this multiple times to multiple people in multiple different games. So I don't, it's not my story. It's not just Fortnite. It's not just me. It's multiple people through multiple years. Like we were in 2018. They did the World Cup stuff in 2019. The Chap and Vivid stuff is 2020. So it's like, across multiple years, across multiple games, multiple occurrences. So it's like, at what point do you sit there and say like, oh yeah, they do things well in League and CS:GO, but they fuck everyone else? Like, oh, awesome. Like that's a super great thing to know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know how after all this time they can sit there and like not come out and say anything to anybody. And like, I don't mind if you want to sit there and say like, hey, like it's Fortnite, we sucked at recruiting it. We picked up too many players, but I don't care. Like even if I went to TwitchCon and like I did really bad, and they came to me and they're like, oh hey, like everybody didn't really do well, you didn't do well, we think we're just gonna like part ways, we give you like a month to like let you know. Like I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? At least then I can look at something and say like, oh, this was like a result of me not playing well, this was a result of me not performing. But like I can't say that if you don't even send me to the tournament. And in the last tournament I played in, I placed like top 5 in this qualifier, and the people that I placed around, it was like me, Tfue, FaZe Tempo, and like Tyler's and somebody else who placed like top 5 in these qualifiers. So it's like, it's not like they can look at me like, oh, like you don't have the potential to do good. It's like at that time and that point in the game, like I had tons of potential to pop off or like do well at TwitchCon. So it's like super frustrating when somebody's like, oh, they did it to like save money, or, they thought the potential wasn't there. It's like, bro, we cost $750 a month. You know what I mean? It's like they're signing people for millions upon millions of dollars. Like $750 is literally not a lot of money. Like even if it was like 1,500 or 2K, I'd be like, okay, like I get it. 1,500, 4 players, 6K a month, the other team, the team house. But even it's like, bro, $750, like that's not a lot for me to sit there and be like, yeah, let's just take a chance, let's like roll the dice. You know what I mean? Even if you didn't want to do that, like I said, if you want to cut all ties, by all means say that. But that wasn't even said to us. It was just like, yeah, we're just gonna go different ways. And like they cut us like one by one, didn't tell us why. Like they cut random people at random times, and it was just overall like, I would say terrible. Just overall terrible experience.
It's definitely an interesting side to hear. And to your point, it's tough when Cloud9 is not going to go public about the decisions they make dozens and dozens of times per year. And so I'm curious where we go from here. So I guess we can leave on this. And again, thank you for taking the time to actually explain your side and your backstory early on, your experience with Cloud9. Would you have any final words to Cloud9? Obviously you wanted more of a reason, more transparency and communication, but were there any final words? The floor is obviously yours.
No, I mean, I would say the biggest thing that I think you already said it in your last video is like the thing that I feel like these people like don't understand or they don't take into account is like, the offers that we had. Like we were talking like seriously with like a few orgs at the time, but we were in contact with a lot of orgs. Like I reached out to, I think, every single person on every single org and every single manager possible. And even if they weren't the person, they would direct me to be like, oh, hey, like this is the person you want to speak to. So like at the time when, we're negotiating and whatnot, we chose Cloud9, right? So 5 months down the line when we all get dropped. So let's say I want to go find a new org now. It's like, oh, I want to go find this new organization. Every time I would talk to an org, they'd be like, oh, like, did you play at TwitchCon? I'd be like, oh, well, no, I didn't get to go to TwitchCon. They're like, oh, well, like, Cloud9 didn't send you? I'm like, well, no, we couldn't go. And then like, oh, well, like, why would we sign a player who hasn't played in like the most recent tournament? Back then there were only those 2 tournaments. Like, you know what I mean? So why would we sign a player who like we didn't really see their like past results? You know what I mean? We haven't seen you in the last tournament, so like there's really nothing for us to go off of besides the other tournament. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay. So now I couldn't even go to TwitchCon on my own dime because I'm being paid $750 a month. You know what I mean? Don't have my own money to fly from East Coast to West Coast, stay for TwitchCon, and like do all that kind of stuff to prove myself. So I couldn't even go. And then, okay, we get dropped. And then it's like, okay, yeah, find a new org. But it's like, no org's going to sign you if you haven't played in the most recent tournament to show yourself off. So these orgs, like, I feel like they just don't understand the damage that they're doing. Like, they're doing more damage by signing players and letting them go than they are, like, signing them and doing anything with them. And, like, if you, like, they don't even try to promote you. They don't even try to help you. Like, if they came to us a couple months in and even said, like, oh, hey, you guys aren't maintaining your streams, you aren't maintaining, XYZ, I would totally get that. And if we didn't do it, then so be it. Go a different way. But, like, nothing was ever said to us about anything. Like, it sucks because it's more of like a don't meet your stars, or like don't meet your celebrities, because like Cloud9 was like my favorite organization. Like, you'd ask any of my friends, anybody I know online, like I was diehard, like Cloud9, like everything.
It's the don't meet your idols because you might be scared what
Yeah.
you find out kind of thing.
No, that's exactly what it is. Because now it's probably the bottom of the barrel org. I would probably be disgusted if I ever wore anything from them right now, because I've received nothing of any sorts of communication from them. So, but yeah, that's where I'll leave it off. I like I said, don't meet your idols, and that's really it.
I very much appreciate your time and you sharing your experience, your individual experience with Cloud9. And I think at the very end of the day, any up-and-comers, like I said before, who can hear your message and be all the more prepared for when they do enter negotiations or are talking to major organizations, it's always fun, not necessarily in this case, but it's always interesting to hear your side of things. And I'm sure those kind of people really enjoy your insight on these very serious situations. So I thank you again for your time and you sharing your story with your experience with Cloud9.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, having me on and letting me share my experience, because, for a long time I've wanted to say something, but like at the end of the day, like I was just in my head, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? Just take the L, just move on. But with all the stuff that's just like continuously happening, like over and over and over, I kind of hope that they would like treat other people better than us, and like, but they haven't. So now I just feel like it was a good time to kind of just like get it all out, because I can't say like it doesn't, it didn't still bother me even to this day, which is obviously why I'm saying it, because every day, like, every time I think about it, I just get like aggravated or I get like pissed off about it. So I appreciate you letting me kind of like go off about it and, asking good questions and whatnot. So